I want to welcome everyone joining live and those that will be reviewing this by recorded video to this month's Let's Talk Solutions, focusing on the life cycle of an endowment grant. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording today's presentation, and you'll be able to find this and all previous presentations in NPAC's knowledge base. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom in your Zoom screen. We have team members monitoring your questions, and we will make time at the end to discuss some of them live. With that, let me introduce today's speaker. Jill Byrne is our Senior Solutions Engineer and will be demonstrating for you today. Take it away, Jill.
Hi, well, welcome everybody. So today's agenda, as Amy mentioned, we're going to go through the life cycle of a competitive or endowed grant, take a look at the business processes related to that, and then dive into the system where I'll demonstrate creating the application, how you can best support the applicants, the reviewing, awarding, and sending correspondence. So kind of that whole soup to nuts from beginning to end the process. And then we'll log into Spectrum and give an example of the applicant and the reviewer experience. And then, as Amy mentioned, we'll have a time at the end to answer some of your questions. Again, we've got a couple of monitors that are helping us today, so please funnel your questions into that Q&A option on your toolbar there. Next slide. So we thought we'd start with kind of the high level life cycle of a competitive or endowment grant. And it's just an example here of that typical, oh, can you go back please? And the features within GE/NXT that support each of these phases. Notice that it is cyclical, as generally competitive grants have seasons or cycles in which they're open to applicants. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Next, we see an example of the typical business process for managing competitive or endowed grants submitted by the applicants using the Spectrum web portal. From whence the application is submitted, a GE/NXT user within your organization will review the new online proposal application, make any necessary edits, and then move it forward to a review committee. As the application is approved, you'd progress it forward by creating a proposal record. That record will contain all the details related to the application, including internal workflow steps. Workflow is a set of tasks related to managing the proposal. Our recommended best practice is to configure your workflow to include a task named Create Grant. Now, workflow steps are assigned to GE/NXT users within your organization. Workflow tasks scheduled for action will appear within the alerts area. So when it's time and the task is due to be completed, the user assigned to the Create Grant task will complete it and a new grant record is created. For more information about configuring workflow, please visit our Learn library, as we have just deployed some new training videos supporting the features in GE/NXT. So from there, the grant will appear available to be added to the check run. Once the check run is processed, a payment is created. That request for payment is sent to your integrated financial system, which of course issues the award. So that's a lot of information. And if you might have some questions, again, please funnel those into our Q&A area so our monitors can help and get those answered. Okay. Ready to see it in action. So let's start the demo portion of our presentation. This is going to go quickly, and I'm sure you're trying to take notes. I invite you to please sit back and watch the demonstration, because as Amy mentioned, this session is being recorded. And after the event, we will place that recording on our knowledge base under the Let's Talk Solutions area. All righty. So let's get our sharing going here. All right. So let's start off with GE. As I mentioned, our agenda today, we're going to go through the basics of creating the grant application. Then we'll show some tips and best practices for supporting applicants during the open application period. Briefly overview reviewing proposals, adding committees. Then we'll walk through the check run and look at batch correspondence for award letters. And then we'll wrap it up, as I mentioned, where we'll dive into Spectrum and take a look at the applicant and review committee members' experience in the web portal. So we're going to start with going to the online app area in the system. And under there, you'll see an online apps category, of which all of your online applications will be within this library. All of them listed below and so forth. So we're going to start with creating a new application. This one will be grant. We've got to give it a name. All right, so let's talk about some of the features that we're seeing here on this screen. All of the information tiles are definitely areas that you want to review. We'll talk first about the configuration options. At the top, you'll see automatically process applications. This is a really neat feature, as the system, if you check this box, will automatically be processed right into proposals as soon as they are submitted. So it takes out the step of processing the submitted application. It just turns right into a proposal record. So it kind of takes out that extra step. You can assign a default fund and then the cycle type. If it's open-ended, you can leave that radio box checked. If not, choose that cyclical, because of course, typically these have a season or a period of which they're open. That submitted status gives you a couple of options there. Submitted is kind of the standard or the default setup, and that's where submitted applications will become read-only to the applicant. The other option that we see there, committed applications can still be edited up to the deadline. So that's the big difference between the two there. So we know that ours is cyclical, so let's give it a little bit of a time frame. Let's say this one's open for the summer. So we'll open it up here. And then you can be even more granular and add beginning and end times. Oops, I just realized I was in the stage 2. Do notice there, that was a great way to comment on how we have the ability to support multiple stages or multiple rounds of reviewing if your organization needs to go through multiple cycles. Next is our web settings. This is pretty important with regards to having this application form available out on Spectrum, the web portal. And so the application title, this is the external name. So how do I want this to appear in Spectrum? It could have a completely different name than what we have for our internal purposes. Passwords, you do have this option. You can assign passwords. This password that you set here is only visible to GE users with edit capabilities. So that's a good thing to note. Listed online, that little checkbox is pretty powerful. So let's say you're in the process of just editing. I'm still working on this application form. I'm not ready yet for it to appear on Spectrum. So you can leave that box unchecked. As soon as you've completed your editing and you're ready to deploy it and make it available out on Spectrum, you can check that box and it will appear. Allow multiple applications. When this is set, applicants can create and submit multiple applications using this same form. By choosing the featured option, out on Spectrum, some of you might be using this. There is the ability to feature or promote certain applications. And so by checking that box, then this one will appear within that featured area. Lastly is the submit email. CC, this is a way, of course, Spectrum will automatically send and generate emails for the applicants. So when they submit their application, they'll automatically get an email, a confirmation email from Spectrum. So this option provides a way to include an additional email address that maybe should receive a copy of that message. Now, scoring, so let's dive into that. If your organization includes a review of the application and uses like a scoring rubric or some sort of methodology, here is where you add the review groups to the application. So you can have more than one review group. So for example, if you have certain areas that review certain sections, specific areas of the application, you can be that granular and define exactly what you want them to review. So before you get here, there is some configuration to do first. So under that review functional area, you'll see different menu options there, including app groups. So app groups or application review groups are a collection of submitted web applications for a specific online app, which will get assigned to a committee for them to be able to score in Spectrum. So first, we're going to want to create ourselves an app group. I'm going to call mine proposal review. This group reviews my proposals. This, of course, you can have a choice of proposal or scholarship. Now, here is where we need to link this, this app group with the one that the application that I'm currently in process of being able to add it to. Now, oops, now I know why. I was going to say I'm not seeing it. There you go. I chose the wrong type up there. That's a good indicator. I did not realize I did that. There we go. Now we can see the one that we're creating, communities and thrive. Now you can add demographic targets to this if you need to. It's not a required field, but demographic targets are used for ensuring that awards are given to a diverse group of candidates. And so you can add those types of values here to the app group. And then the auto group option, if checked, submitted applications for this selected web app meet a certain criteria will be automatically put into this app group. And in a moment, we'll see where criteria comes into play. Oops. All right, so now let's go back to our application. Oh, really quick, there's that criteria. So if I had selected that last option called auto group, here is where you can define the criteria. And once that criteria is met by the applicant within the application, then this app group would become automatically assigned to it. So let's go back to our application form that we were creating here, our Communities Thrive grant. Now I can add my application group that we just created. Oh, well, my goodness. Let's go back in there. Oops. I don't know why that's not showing up, but thank goodness I've got one that already baked for us. So here is the review group added to my scoring. The next area that we'll go into is the messages, descriptions, and instructions. And so this is your ability of being able to set messages for applicants as they go through the application journey. And so you can have things like application descriptions, instructions, maybe you want some verbiage on the main submitted page, maybe the preliminary page, anywhere within the application journey, you can add some default descriptions and instructions to appear for the applicant. Next, we'll take a look at how to add some pages to our application. So now we've kind of got the bones set up, how we want it configured, how do we want it to appear on Spectrum, what's our scoring methodology. Now let's add some pages to it. I've got some examples already added to my example for today's session, but let's talk about these options here that we see, such as adding a new page, adding an existing page, and copying pages. Mostly, what's the difference between these two here? When you use the add existing page, this is going to be the same page, but might be in different application. So the nice thing about that is you're going to be able to change it once and it carries through to everywhere that that page happens to be applied. So for example, maybe your grant agreement. Let's open that up. And so we've got an example of a whole bunch of different application pages that have already been created in the system. So by choosing the add existing page, that gives me the opportunity to add a page, a common page. And as I mentioned, the nice thing about that is you can edit that page once and it carries through. That edit will show up and appear everywhere that that page is being used. So a good example that we often give is like your grant agreement, as that's probably pretty standard and is the verbiage on it is probably the same everywhere that that page is used. The other option, copy, copy takes all the settings, but changes do not affect the root page. Somebody gave me a great tip on the difference between these two. Think of the existing page as almost like creating a twin. The copy is almost like doing a save as. So you like how that page looks, but maybe you just want to tweak a few things. So that is the difference between these two features. When we're adding a new page, so let's go in there real quick. And we'll give it a name. Now the system name is what it'll be called within GE. The web name is going to be what it shows up to the applicant, so on the form. These can be completely different. And then for your page type, of course, there's addendum and preliminary type pages, references, so forth. I'm going to call this one a standard page. I do want to point out the review only. This comes up a lot in support, and it's a feature that I think is one of those that's not commonly used, or folks just aren't aware of it. So review only adds a field to the application that is only viewable by the reviewers. So if there are things that you want your reviewers to fill out, or maybe check boxes, or maybe a free text field, you have the option here of adding that page to the overall application, but again, only the reviewers would see that page. We'll call our standard. Now active, of course, that means that it's ready, that it's a page that I want my applicants to see. And then we also have the opportunity to hide it from reviewers. So again, thinking of that review process, are there pages within the application that might be capturing sensitive information or information that's not applicable to the reviewer or that scoring process? Then you have an opportunity to hide it from them. And then, of course, your sort order. Generally, we recommend your sort order being in increments of, let's say, 5 or 10, and that gives you opportunity to add pages in between. So I'm going to save this guy real quick so that you can see how my order here, I've been using a cadence here so that just in case I need to slip another page in between, I've got the room there as these are in order, in numeric order. So the organization information is the one I just added. Let's take a look at, because right now it's just a blank page. We obviously want to take a look at the layout and the fields that we want to add to it. From here, you can add some fields of which that could be coming from our predefined list, or you can add a brand new field. Another way of which to do this that I kind of like doing is going into the layout. And from here, notice that this editor, I think, is a little more user-friendly. It's kind of nice because this little dialog box here, and you're going to see me use it really quick. Let's add just a couple of things to this, and such as asking if our organization is a nonprofit. And how you interact with this, it's pretty simple. Our little icons here make this very drag and drop friendly. And so I can add that label. I'm just going to grab this little, almost looks like a paragraph marker there. Grab that, drag it over here to my form. And that there adds my the text that the applicant's going to see. Now we need to add, and in this case, I've defined this field as a yes, no. So it's going to be a couple of radio buttons for them to be able to check. So see how nice and easy that is? I'm just dragging and dropping from that fields list. Let's add another one. Let's see, let's add, address line, that's a good one. So now I've got my address line over here. Again, I'm going to drag that label over. And then it is important. Here's a little tip and trick from Jill. See where my cursor is blinking down there? When you're dragging and dropping, make sure you're paying attention to where that cursor's at. Because when I go over there to drag the text box to go with this narrative, it's going to drop it right below because that's where my cursor is. So let's just bring that guy over here. And so now my cursor is placed exactly where I'm going to want this dialog box to go in order for my applicants to be able to add that. So there's just an example of how nice and drag and drop friendly adding field lists to the page can be for you. There's a whole bunch of nice, robust HTML editing capabilities within this area. I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks here. You can add graphics or images if you need to. Another option might be to change the font around. You've got option to change your colors, the background colors, add in some links. And then one of my favorite is actually this option here if you need to maximize this screen and kind of make it a little bigger, that makes it a little easier to work within. And then when you're done, you just click that button again and it brings it back down into this view. So again, this is just an example as we have a short amount of time together today, I just wanted to show you guys a couple of the really cool features that and a lot of flexibility that you have with creating the pages within this grant application. So let's go back to our application here. All right, and now we've got that page added and some other examples in here. In a few moments, we're going to hop into Spectrum and see this guy in action. All right, so I promised you that we'd also take a look at how to support your applicants. So let's look at a couple of ways of doing that. So what if you need to get into their application form? So as they're filling it out, they reach out to you and say, maybe they entered some information and their application form's been locked because they've submitted it, or they're having trouble getting back to some of the questions that they answered. So if we go into the online apps directory and then go into the submitted proposal apps, that's one way of coming in and taking a look at the applications that have been submitted. Over here under this profile section here is where you're going to see the pages of which they've entered information. So thinking back to what we just did, and we added all those fields to the pages, here is where I can see those fields and how that applicant is entering values into those fields. If I need to edit them, very easily, I can come in and change that on behalf of the applicant if I need to. Maybe it's a different page. I can flip to another page within that, again, and within the application, choose that edit and be able to change their values. So again, if they contact you and they're having some challenges with getting information into the fields, this is your ability to be able to look, take a peek into that. And so that's one way. Another way is, let's go back into my form directory, and we're just going to open up one of these. Let's see, let's open my classroom grant one, and we can take a look at, oops, excuse me. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to open it. I get so excited sometimes. Okay, so look at this, these little blue linked numbers here. These counts that are appearing here are your applicants. And so my classroom grant here has 13 applicants. So I've got 13 folks that have opened and have started creating this application form. So from here is just another way of which you can then crack open their application form. And notice now I'm back to the exact same spot I was a few moments ago. So just to review, you can go into the submitted proposal apps and get to this same screen, or you can go to the application itself and then navigate to the aggregated numbers. And again, these are going to take you to that same bucket. And then I can look at the form. So it's just a couple of ways of being able to get there. All right. So let's see. How about, let's take a look at how we might find attachments. So again, I'm within this same application form that is being filled out by the applicant. So not only can I see their submitted replies or responses to my form, but I can also view any attachments that they have added to the form. I also can attach documents to the form and pass through to them. And then notice that we have the ability to correspond with the applicant from here also, whether that's a document such as a Word document. This is going to engage Word mail merge, or of course, I can send an email to them if I need to send it electronically. So this is my way of being able to correspond with the applicant. What if I need to reopen this submitted form? Because remember, once the status is changed to processed, the applicant can no longer edit. So to reopen it so that they can do so, navigate to their application form, which I'm on right now. Notice these actions that are over here on the right side. Now we can progress it forward and say that it's been reviewed, but notice also I can reopen this application form and give the applicant opportunity to go in and edit on Spectrum. And then let's see, lastly, let's talk about query. So some of you have mentioned before that you might, in your reviewing process, need to group applicants or maybe be able to query upon certain values or different ways that they're answering different fields within the application form. You can use query, but there is a little bit of configuration that you have to do to add these fields to the query feature in NXT so that you can pull those fields into the query. So how do you do that? We have a wonderful article out here on our knowledge base underneath the administrative area on how to add application fields to query. This is super helpful if you need to create any internal reports or even create some sort of list for your review committees and so forth. So go out to our knowledge base and look for this report utility, adding application fields so that your query can see those fields that are within that application, such as these right here. All right, so let's move to the next phase, which is our award management. Now, we're going to kind of pretend that this application has made it through our review cycles and it's been approved. So thinking back to that process flow that Amy and I showed you at the beginning, we're reaching the point where we're going to turn this application into a proposal record. So it's very important because right now, it's merely just a submitted application. When you're ready to progress it forward, you'll need to turn it into a proposal record. Now, remember, back when we first started, I mentioned that within your application form, you can choose a setting that bypasses this stage and moves it straight into a proposal record if you need to do that. But in our case, we had the application come in, we went through our internal reviewing, now I'm ready to move it forward, create the proposal record, and now we have the ability to generate a grant. So where do we find these proposal records? Under the proposals functional area, you'll see the proposal area, which has all of the proposal records located within it. From here, let's go down and take a look at that workflow. Now I have my training, my demo system set up to automatically apply workflow. Now that is something you can configure your system to do, have workflow templates. Now we have created several new learning videos that are available out in our Learn library that's all related to workflow. So if workflow is something you need a little more information about, make sure that you visit our Learn Library, as we have a video out there on all about workflow and how to configure it and how to add it to the system. So this create grant one is very important, as that again creates the grant record of which then you progress forward into your financial system to generate the award. So we're almost towards the end. Once this create grant is created, then the grant record can be generated. So in my example, it's already been accomplished. So once the grant record is created, then we can go into what a lot of you are probably pretty familiar with, which is using the batch process and performing a check run. When we're performing a check run, all of the available grant payments show up down here in this data list. All of my available grant payments. Some really cool things that you can do with the data list throughout the system include being able to rearrange these column headers so you can move them around, and that is user specific. So what I mean by that is different users within your organization can present this screen in a completely different way if they need to. So this is unique to you and your user. You can also add some columns if you want to include some data columns that are not presented to you at this moment. You can also filter, search within this list. And then this is actually one of my favorite things about NXT data lists, the ability to export on demand very easily at any of the data lists within GE NXT. When you see this little upward arrow, you can choose that, and then the system is going to create a CSV file that you can then open with Excel. So just thinking of your internal processes, maybe prior to running the check run, processing the check run, maybe your controller needs to look and approve, or maybe you have some sort of internal process. So you definitely take advantage of the ability to export this list into Excel and then be able to provide that to whoever needs to see it. So let's load up a couple of my grant payments into the check run. They're here now. Process my check run and validate it. But notice also we have this new batch correspondence option here. This is kind of cool because right here from the check run, at this point, you're pretty much ready to announce to these recipients that they have met the eligibility requirements and they're going to receive their grant award. So right here from the batch, I can pull up a correspondence and either generate a hard copy or a paper copy, an email for an electronic copy. Templates are configured within the system. So I have an award letter that I can email out to the recipients that are in the background here of those grants. Also a little plug for our Learn Library. We have a brand new video out there all about how to generate correspondence, how to configure the templates, and all of that. So definitely take a look at our Learn Library for a video on how to generate correspondence. Okay, so at this point, once I run through the process of the check run and I create the payments in the financial system, at this point, those payments are now over in your integrated financial system and they can be issued from there, whether you're generating actual checks or maybe you're doing electronic funds. It all happens in that finance system. So let's hop out to Spectrum real quick and take a look at the experience in Spectrum for our applicants and our reviewers. So I always like to preface when I'm demonstrating in my spectrum. My spectrum has not been implemented. I'm sure your spectrum has been configured with your colors, your fonts, your logos, and it all looks nice and pretty. Mine is kind of just how it is out of the box, plain Jane. It hasn't really had too much flair added to it. But with that said, I've created some logins so that we can take a look through the lens of the applicant and what is the experience for them. And so when we come out here to Spectrum, and again, mine might not look like yours, but just to give you kind of that experience and to see the featured application that we just created earlier, there's that Communities Thrive grant. And then I had used the text of being able to put a description on that Community Thrive grant. And I also indicated in the checkbox on the configuration that I wanted to promote it or add it to the featured applications tile. So that's why it's showing up here. These are the various pages that we added. Here's the one that we did together, just kind of on the fly, that is kind of tucked in at the end. I had already pre-built these just so that you guys can see kind of an example of what the possibilities are. There's that grant agreement page. Remember back when I was on the configuration of adding the pages, I mentioned that you have the ability to copy and also be able to use existing ones. Remember the existing, when you choose that option to use an existing page, it's making a twin. So it's the same page, but it's used in multiple places. So this grant agreement, that's pretty standard. We always want that to appear the same. And so I can just add existing page and there it is. So if I go in and change it, it would cascade or show up across all the different applications that I'm using this particular grant agreement page in. So there's an example of how the application is going to show up to the applicant. But I also wanted to give you guys kind of a little snapshot into some of the features that you can do within the pages and the fields, such as being able to trigger certain fields to show up based on eligibility. So for example, is your organization a nonprofit 501c3? Is it a public charity? Notice that after I choose yes here, another box, now I'm asking for that tax ID. So this is just some of the features that are capable within the pages and the fields that you're setting up. You can have them be triggered based on how they're answering it. Just give you a little example of that there. Let's log in as our reviewer, as we might have applications that need to be reviewed. So now I've logged into Spectrum as a reviewer and notice my menu options have completely changed over here. So a lot of times we think of the Spectrum web portal as one large portal with many views or many portals within that kind of depend on what role that site visitor has. And in my case, I'm coming into Spectrum as a committee member. And so I can see the proposals that are up for review or any scholarships that are up for review and be able to walk through that reviewing. Remember when we were creating the application and I mentioned that app group, and we can define in there and also in our committee definitions, which exact questions out of the entire application do we want that review committee member to be able to review? So that's all configured back there when we were setting up that application form. From here, they can hone right into the area within the application that they need to score, or they can view the entire application. So kind of the difference between these two tabs. The review tab is specifically highlighting the areas within the application that we want the reviewer to take a look at. So think like work smart, not hard. We're pulling out of that whole application the specific areas, but we certainly can allow the reviewer to take a look at the entire application if they need to. They also can print off their review, or they can print off the entire application if they need to. When they're all done, they can choose submit, and their review will show up in GE. All righty, so that takes us through our journey. I know that went really fast and that was a lot of information. Just to remind everybody, we are recording this and we'll make it available out there in the knowledge base under the Let's Talk Solutions header here. And some of our past webinars are already out here. So make sure that you are taking a look at these. The last month's on correspondence was so amazing. So if you didn't get a chance to view that one, definitely take a look at that. Valuable information there. So I think, Amy, at this point, do we want to open it up for some questions? We got about 10 minutes left.
Yes, thanks, Jill. Let's see, I think we do have another question in. Oh, this is a suggestion, but we have a number of them that I'm going to highlight from our Q&A. Some of the questions, one of the questions was, can you batch turn applications into proposal records, or do you have to do them one at a time? So the answer is you can do that in batch, but in Classic currently. We do have a new release coming out for GE NXT in June, and we will be holding a webinar, a release webinar on that new release as well. Let's see, another question. Any others that came up? Will the report setup utility be added to GE NXT in the future? And yes, that will be. The administrative menu item is currently being worked on for our GE NXT next release as well. Another question was on copying an existing page to build an app. You can reuse the template, but if you make any edits to it, those changes will only change on that particular application. And if you use add existing page, any edits will be made across that application that have that page. So just to verify that that is exactly how that works.
That's absolutely. And so that's why I wanted to make sure we understood the difference between the two. And my example was like the grant agreement page. That's an excellent candidate for adding an existing page, as that one is probably pretty standard. And the nice feature with that adding existing is when you go to edit that page, you only have to edit it once, and then that edit cascades across all the places that that grant agreement is being used. Versus the copy, just like what Amy read, if you use copy, you would then have to go into every place that that page is being used and do an edit.
Correct. And just to reiterate, we will be scheduling a product release webinar for our next GE NXT release. So watch your emails for that announcement as well. Let's see. Please feel free to connect with us on all social media platforms. You can get in touch with us that way as well. And we hope to see you next month for Let's Talk Solutions. Mark your calendar for Wednesday, June 15th. I want to thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.